Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do a little assembly maintenance on this little guy. This is the CRKT Drifter. Interesting little piece. First off, I want to thank my buddy Andrew for sending this guy along. It's not a knife I probably would have picked up on my own, but you know what? There's some interesting stuff here. So let's go ahead and take it apart. This is the inaugural disassembly for a brand new set of drivers. Mind you, it's the same set of drivers as before, but I decided to pick up a new set just because, well, the other ones were starting to strip out and whatnot, and this is sort of a consumable thing when you disassemble as many knives as I do. So, let's see here. T6. Pop that out. One T6 screw, and the other T6 screw. There we go. Oh, wrong orientation. I'll use my little crevices up here. It's not the proper term, but it works to keep the screws in. And then we will go ahead and pop the pivot. Looks like T10. It's probably T8. Yeah, that's T8. Maybe T9. That'd be funky. Is it T9? Looks like T9. All right. Well, hey, why not, right? All right, T9. All right. Pop that out. Knife's going to come apart pretty straightforwardly. There you go. Interesting. So I'm a little confused. This knife has two different washers on each side. On this side, on the show side, I suppose, we have a plastic washer with a copper phosphor bronze washer, that is, I'm sorry, on top of it. And then on this side, we have a brass washer with phosphor bronze beneath it. I really can't say I understand any part of that. These are super, super thin washers. Holy crap. I mean, seriously, look at that. It just disappears. It's so thin. Because the phosphor bronze material is probably more expensive, and they're trying to cut every damn corner they can to keep the cost down on this little guy. But, yeah, that is what it is, I guess. Weird. But okay. Plastic goes on the presentation side, and, well, actually, we know this because the washers are differently sized. That's actually very handy. See, the smaller washer needs to go with the lock bar here. But look, the knife is pretty straightforward as it is. There's really not a whole lot going on here. This one has seen some love. See here, it's got some evidence of use. No freaking problem. And I'm getting texted. Fiance's blowing up my phone. Looks to be pictures of kittens. All right, I'll take it. Why not, right? So, there we go. Let's go ahead and continue the clean-out process here. Little world in the view into our weird little life. You know, it's funny, and I don't mean to, make anybody sad who hasn't found such a thing, but it's funny what love can look like to different people. We both have very strange backgrounds and whatnot, she and I, but we find our ways to show our love in strange ways. Pictures of cute kittens sent to the phone, just knowing that they're going to make the other person smile. Puppies, too, on occasion. Snakes. Anything cute. I am one of the people who is gifted enough to find snakes cute. Some people don't. That's okay. Anyways, that's completely and totally beside the point. Look, the knife is straightforward. I mean, seriously, it's a liner lock. There's a liner. There's a liner. There's a couple of washers here. The tent ball. Can't freaking argue with that, right? So let's go ahead and put it right back together here. Okay, so the pivot goes in the presentation side. And one thing to note, this is a D-shaped pivot. And it needs to engage with the D shape in the other side, which means this D shape needs to be pointing back towards the lock bar there. So we just make sure that as we reassemble everything that we're keeping things in the proper orientation. Go ahead and use 10-weight nano oil in a pen form here. It just makes it a little easier for me not to completely over-lubricate the world. Mind you, I will still do so, but it makes it a little easier not to in a universe where I would choose perhaps not to. There we go. Go ahead and put this here, here, a little bit more. Drop the phosphor bronze, incredibly thin washer on top of it. Come here. There you go. Drop that into place, no problem. drop a blade onto the position. Now, because I'm having to, because the pivot is kind of coming through the other side, I'm having to work sort of in reverse. Usually I like to work with the pivot on the lock bar side, but alas, it's not possible tonight. Okay. In this particular knife as it was set up here, although I don't know that this is the proper setup, I'm thinking it might have been disassembled previously, because almost always when you have a two different kinds of washers, the phosphor bronze one goes on the side of the where the blade is. And so I think it may have just been disassembled previously and then put back together maybe improperly, or maybe they just didn't put it back together properly when they built it the first time. I don't quite know, but I'm going to go ahead and make that judgment call and switch those over. The last thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of lubrication on the detent ball path here. That will help the detent ball, which is seen here, slide along the top of the blade a little bit more cleanly. But look, we are ready to go back together. One other thing I got to do here is just adjust the pivot until it's in the proper position, so it can drop into place like that. And then one way to make these knives come back together again is to disengage the lock bar. I'm just lifting with my thumb under there. Makes everything pop back into place. All right, we are going to use some blue thread locker, Loctite stick blue. The stick-based Loctite works well, but the liquid stuff is fine too. But I'm just going to use this such that I can dial in the pivot tension here, and it'll kind of stay in position rather than coming back out. And then switch back over to my other drivers for my other screws. You know, this is a great example. This knife here is a great example of doing something simple well. So often companies try and make their budget knives by doing something very complicated and cutting every corner in the book, and it grinds my gears. I mean, I even went so far as to make a knife gripe about this very specifically over with Knife News. Check that series out if you haven't yet. But anyways, so often they make these really complicated knives, and then they just do them super poorly. But in this case, this is a simple knife that they are doing reasonably well for the price point. They're not doing anything fancy. And I like that. It feels, I don't know, the results tend to be just better. Okay. Action solid. Centering is going to be a little bit weird because this is actually a chisel ground blade. It is slightly off-center, though. It is favoring the the lock side. But it is also a $20 knife by CRKT. So I'm not thinking that the centering is going to be my my substantial concern here. That said, what I am going to go ahead and do is loosen up these two screws momentarily with and just check to see whether that releases any of the tension in the system, lets the blade stay more centered. No, it didn't. What I'm also going to do then is use my thumb, apply some sideways pressure to the blade. Pressure. I don't know what that means, but I'll apply pressure instead, and we'll see if that gives me any better centering. Sometimes you just have stuff, whoa there. I feel like this might be running a little tight still. Let's try loosening this up a little bit more and see if we get any blade play. Because we're using the Loctite. Oh yeah, that's nicer. We're just right on the edge. Is that play? Oh, and now it's dead center. That's nice. No, there's no play. Look, this is a fine action now. The centering is good. I'm happy. You know, nice. Of course, I got to carry it for review. I may yet come to hate it, but you know, so far I'm actually pretty impressed with this little guy. So there you go. That's the disassembly of your CRKT Drifter here. Hope this has been interesting, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.